It is Sunday, the 27th of March, 2016. It's Easter Sunday, and I'm in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, engaged in my usual alternative spiritual practice of protesting against Unitarian Universalist intolerance and bigotry, and clergy misconduct, and various other Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy. And as a result of the loss and theft of picket signs, I'm down to a trinity of picket signs. Today I have 3 picket signs because I lost a bag full. And then last Sunday, Unitarian, or at least someone who had every appearance of being someone attending the Unitarian Church of Montreal, stole one of my picket signs, the picket sign that I had leaning up against the lamppost, or actually I think it was the fire hydrant. No, it was the lamppost. I remember now. So I had another picket sign like that one, leaning up against the bottom of the lamppost on the corner of Bulmer and de Maisonneuve, and a woman approaching the church as my back was turned because I was walking the other way. In circulating, she grabbed the picket sign that was there and walked off with it. And the most ironic thing about that theft of my picket sign was that the slogan on the picket sign said, Unitarian Universalists censor and suppress critics. So stealing picket signs is, pretty well censorship and suppression of my words in the extreme. It's like getting rid of it. It's about similar to like burning books kind of idea. Basically getting rid of my words completely by stealing the picket sign that they're written on. And actually that brings me to another recent newsworthy event. There's actually an interesting connection here that I only learned about in the last few days. NDG City Councillor Jeremy Searle went and put his foot in it again. Jeremy Searle is an interesting character, shall we say. And I think a fair number of people would not disagree with me if I said Jeremy Searle was a jerk or an asshole or a idiot, and so on. Basically arrogant. If I said Jeremy Searle was arrogant, very, very few people would disagree with me. If I said that at least on occasion Jeremy Searle is intolerant and bigoted, again, not a whole lot of people would disagree with me on that point either. So, but he's also Montreal Unitarian. And at the last NDG City Council meeting, Jeremy Searle got into a little bit of trouble for making some over-the-top statements arising out of the fact that the signage in the library, I guess in NDG or Côte des Neiges, is completely in French. In other words, according to Jeremy Searle, and I believe it is the fact, due to Bill 101 or whatever, all of the signs in this library are unilingual French. Jeremy has a right to make an issue of that. So, maybe there should be some English there too and all that. But of course, Jeremy Searle has to do it in a way that, is over the top and offensive and insulting and pretty damn close to bigoted. He basically said it was fascism. He said that he used the word fascism. He compared, this is it. He basically compared anyone who was not opposed to this, and essentially I think he was speaking about his fellow city councillors and so on. He was essentially saying, if you are not opposed to the fact that the signs in the library are exclusively French, well, you're camp guards. And of course he meant camp guards in the sense of guards in a Nazi concentration camp. He's such saying, well, you're not actually killing people, but you're standing by and letting shit happen and doing nothing about it. You're basically aiding and abetting the abusers kind of thing. And then he said, fascism is the suppression of ideas. That's pretty well the exact quote from the newspaper article that I read. It was a suburban newspaper article. Jeremy Searle is quoted as saying that the suppression of ideas, a lot of background noise here from the garbage truck. Jeremy Searle saying the suppression of ideas is fascism. So this brings us back not only to the picket sign theft of last Sunday, but a whole lot of other suppression of my ideas by not only Montreal Unitarians, but the larger Unitarian Universalist religious community. But let's bring it back to the picket sign. I had a picket sign right there. This one says a church that spits in God's eye, and there's a very good reason for that. But last week, the picket sign that was in this position said, Unitarian Universalists censor and suppress critics. It actually said U*US. UUs, censor and suppress critics. But U*Us, just to make it clear, stands for Unitarian Universalists. It's an acronym that refers to Unitarian Universalists. So I'm saying Unitarian Universalists. It wasn't actually on the picket sign, but that's what the picket sign meant and said. And this picket sign was stolen by a woman who was approaching the Unitarian Church of Montreal and who looked like one of the regulars. I unfortunately missed witnessing the actual theft by seconds. In fact, when I turned around at the end of my walk down the sidewalk that way, she had just grabbed the sign and was walking away with it up this sidewalk, presumably towards the, to go in the back entrance of the church, because she didn't want to see me walking across this crosswalk into the front, because, it would have been pretty damn obvious that she had my picket sign. So she was basically being furtive and trying to, avoid being seen stealing my picket sign. Well, I didn't actually see it. Strictly speaking, my eyes did see it, but my eyes were concentrating on other things, and I didn't notice it. So physically, my eyes saw what happened. Thankfully, the video captured what happened. And so that's it. I have video evidence of the woman taking the sign and walking off with it. But the video evidence, it's obscured, by the lamppost itself, by this sign, and by the bushes. Because, when I turned around, I was up this end of the sidewalk. So we'll walk up this end of the sidewalk, and we'll turn around, and we'll see, like I was about here kind of thing. So as you can see, there's a brief gap between the tree and the lamppost, and then the sign and the other tree and the other lamppost, etc. There's a very narrow, brief gap that she could be seen in. Sorry, thought we were going up the other way. I'm occasionally, a little aside here, because I was, yammering away in my monologue, I forgot that people in wheelchairs have to go up the ramp that's further along. So I was inadvertently blocking the gentleman in the wheelchair. I wasn't really blocking because I got out of the way before he actually approached me, but for a brief period, if I'd stayed where I was, I would have been blocking his circulation on the sidewalk. And the reason I mentioned that is because I've had numerous false complaints from members of the church about me, blocking the sidewalk. That is simply not true. There are very rare and occasional incidents like the one we just had, like the one that's on video. I was busy talking, I was busy explaining a situation, I wasn't really paying full attention to the fact. Well, I was actually, I saw him coming. I knew he was coming my way. It came a little bit fast, but I forgot that he can't go up the front. I thought I had made room for him. Like, I essentially stopped. The reason I stopped is because I was thinking they're going to go up this way, but of course they can't. But the minute, the second I realized, oops, I'm in his way, I stepped out of the way and he passed, no problem. I even said sorry. So these bullshit allegations have caused numerous complaints to the SPVM. The church phone said, there's protesters preventing us from entering the church. Like, total bullshit. I've never in any way, deliberately tried to prevent anyone from entering the church. One exception when getting back to theft of picket signs, there was one exception where a guy stole my picket signs years ago, and I did step in front of him to try to get my picket signs back, which then caused him to assault me. So yes, that's the only, in all of my recollection, I think that's the only occasion where I actually tried to prevent someone from entering the church was when he was stealing my picket signs, and I wanted to prevent the theft. So we're coming back to theft of picket signs. But the church has just repeatedly either grossly misrepresented the facts or even told outright lies. Certain members of the church have brazenly lied to the police in their efforts to try and get the police to shut down my protest. A good example of that, a recent example of that, is from a couple of years ago. It was the first Sunday in January of 2014. I was protesting. I was walking up the sidewalk here. A woman was walking towards me like that guy is. I was actually closer. I was up around close to where that manhole cover is. So I moved to my right to allow her to pass on my left, like this guy's going to do. See, he has no trouble passing on my left. So I moved to her. I was right about here. Lots of room on my left for this woman to pass me. What does she do? She barges right into me, gives me a heavy body check with an elbow, and knocks me completely off my feet. So she assaulted me. It wasn't the worst assault in the world, but she deliberately gave me a body check that knocked me off my ass when she had plenty of room to pass me on my left. And so I'm debating, whether or not to report this assault to the police. I mean, I wasn't hurt, seriously. Wasn't really hurt other than, some maybe minor bruising. But it was an assault, It was generally what's known as simple assault. There's no question it was deliberate. So I'm debating whether or not to call the police about it. And I decided, what I'll do is, it's not an emergency. I'm not going to waste police time. I'll call later and I'll just ask them, what do you think? This is what happened. Do you think it's worth pursuing an assault charge in this matter? So about an hour later, as I'm ready to leave the church, the police show up. One car initially shows up, and I'm leaving. Like, I've already put my picket signs in the bag. I'm walking away, and this police car shows up. So I just waved to the police officer, said I'm leaving. He says, no, you got to stay here. I have to talk to you. So essentially, he was detaining me. He said, you have to stay here. He said, you can't walk away. I probably could have, strictly from a legal perspective, I could have said, well, am I under arrest? And if he said no, then I could have walked away. And I said, but, are you detaining me? If he's not, no, but it says he was, he basically said he was detaining me. He said, no, you can't walk away. I need to talk to you. I said, okay, fine. So he starts talking to me about, my protest activity. Starts talking mainly, initially, about the fact that, some people are complaining about the fact that I, filmed the protest. Well, I pretty well have to protect myself from all these false accusations, to say nothing of record criminal acts against me committed by members of the church. That's the reason I have the camera running almost constantly. But anyway, so initially started with that, but then another police car shows up, and now there's 4, if I'm not mistaken, police officers, 2 police cars parked in front of the church. I'm going, what? I'm leaving. I didn't, nothing other than the assault on me happened. You know, so all of a sudden, one of the police officers that came in the second car essentially, well, if I remember his exact words, it was a woman fell in front of the church. So he didn't exactly, specifically accuse me of assaulting a woman, causing her to fall. But that's pretty well the upshot of what he was saying. He's saying, you know, I said, no, that never happened. I said, that never happened. You know, in other words, no woman fell in front of the church. And his response was, we have eyewitnesses. So he's going from saying a woman fell in front of the church, implying that I was responsible for that I had pushed this woman, which is an assault. If I push a woman and knock her to the ground, that's assault just as much as if a woman pushes me and I fall to the ground, that's an assault too. And that's essentially what I was being accused of, pushing a woman to the ground. And I said, no, that didn't happen. You know, it's like, and his response was, you know, we have eyewitnesses. So it goes from, you know, what could have been a complaint from one person to now at least two people being involved in this. You know, there's not only the alleged victim, but there's also alleged eyewitnesses. And I said, no, you don't have any eyewitnesses because that didn't happen. There's no eyewitnesses to something that didn't happen. You know, and I have evidence of what really did happen. Oh, and by the way, I was knocked to the ground by a woman. So the exact opposite of what you're claiming happened. And since you guys happen to be here, you know, I didn't call you, but, you know, since you're here, since I'm being falsely accused of assaulting a woman, you know, and since people are falsely claiming to be eyewitnesses to this assault, I want you to go in there and arrest Margot Ellis, who assaulted me, and